we get into, well, let me rephrase that. Before we finish Henry IV Part 1, I'm going to send out, I'm going to email today, after I get these graded, a paper handout. And I'm just going to tell you briefly what it's going to include, discuss, etc. I haven't fully figured it out, but I've got a pretty good idea. I'm going to give you an option. You can do regular scholarly literary research paper, alluded to in the syllabus, 5 to 7 sources, something like that. Minimum, I think it says 5 sources, 7 to 10 pages, something like that. There's a word count on the syllabus. You can do that on a theme, an issue, a topic, a setting, a scene, character development, that kind of thing. What I'd like you to try to steer away from, as far as possible, just because I've been doing this for over 30 years and I get a lot of very similar things, and I'm trying to think of a delicate way of putting this, and I'm not known for delicacy when it comes to speech. Try to, Sarah's looking at me, try to ditch, or if you want to write about women in Shakespeare, write about women in Shakespeare, okay? Don't bring I almost said 24th, that'd be Star Trek era. Don't bring a 21st century mindset into the plays. That is, talk about the plays in the setting in the plays, okay? A great example of what I'm talking about in terms of what to do. Look at for example, the dynamic between Aegeus and Hermia, okay? And you can even extrapolate a lot, I think, a little bit from that, and look at the male-female relationships in Midsummer Night's Dream, because there are a bunch of them, obviously. I mean, you've got Theseus, Hippolyta, you've got Lysander and Hermia, you've got Demetrius and Helena, you've got Oberon and Titania, okay? You could do a lot of comparing and contrasting just right there, okay? Or you could, think of that phrase that Lysander says, the course of true love never did run smooth. That deals with these roles, partially at least, okay? Same thing, as you like it. Or we can talk about other plays that we're going to get to, have gotten to a little bit. Harry Percy and his wife. That's an interesting relationship. Or some of the roles of other women in plays. For example, we're not going to see a lot here, but Ophelia in Hamlet. A ton has been written about Ophelia, about whether she has a character per se, okay? But discuss it within the realm of the play and or the play's setting. Because bear in mind, what is the play setting in something like A Midsummer Night's Dream?
Ancient Greece.
Ancient Greece, ancient Athens. Or you can go from there to Shakespeare's day. But don't assume our modern attitudes, okay, can criticize that previous periods. It doesn't work. You can assume that we're more enlightened, but we might be more enlightened and we might not be more enlightened. C.S. Lewis coined a phrase in one of his works, I don't remember what it was, chronological snobbery. And it's the idea that whatever is the modern period, that period always thinks it's the best and the smartest. And that's not necessarily the case, okay? So you can do that kind of research paper, or not just that. You can do, look at characters, et cetera, or themes. There's an awful lot of themes in Shakespeare. I mean, just that appearance versus reality, just in A Midsummer Night's Dream, with the whole allegory of the cave and what is real and what is not real. It's huge in Shakespeare. Or, here's your other option. Find 5 articles about one work. So 5 articles about choose your play. And I'll even say it doesn't have to be one of the plays we're doing. If there's another Shakespeare play that you've read that you just love, usually when I say that, most students go, yeah, right, because they haven't read much Shakespeare. But if there is, choose 5 articles about that play and write what's kind of called a review essay, okay? Take them one by one, and I don't mean, first 2 pages, one essay, second 2 pages, another essay, or page and a half kind of thing. But take them and arrange them in your review where you kind of play, if you can find 5 that work this way, where you can play them off each other. Say you find 2 articles, say you want to write about,
Merchant of Venice?
Merchant of Venice, great play. I've taught it many times before. For some reason this semester, well, partly it's because of the snow and ice the first week of class, this is going to be the fewest number of plays we've ever covered in this class when I'm teaching. Usually we cover 8 or 9. I think we're going to be lucky if we get 6. Maybe 7. Merchant of Venice, okay? Find articles that discuss, for example, the character of Portia, and that take differing perspectives, because then you can pull material to have what those critics are doing largely in the history of criticism. They're arguing with each other, right? What is one of the reasons we use present tense when we write about literature? Conversation's ongoing. It hasn't stopped. It's one of the reasons relatively few people do dissertations on Shakespeare anymore, because it's thought it's all been said before. It hasn't, not by any means. The other day I was doing some playing around, whatever, on the internet, and I came across, my wife had sent me something 8 or 9 years ago. It's a message via Facebook, and I clicked on it the other day. It came up on my memories thing, and it was an interview with Derek Jacobi, talking about all of his years of playing Shakespeare. And he gets down to this part where he's talking about Hamlet's quote-unquote soliloquy in Act 3, Scene 1, to be or not to be. It's the first time I've ever seen anybody other than myself make this comment. He talks about Hamlet. One of the times when he performed Hamlet, he did that speech by Hamlet, assuming Ophelia hears it. What's the problem with that?
It makes it not a soliloquy.
Why is, again, this is the first time I've ever heard or read anyone else. Now, maybe that just shows my lack of reading in Shakespeare criticism, okay? Could be. Whatever, I and Derek Jacobi right? Where is Ophelia in that scene? She's on the stage, folks. It's not a soliloquy. Every handbook I've got, back in my office, my intro to lit textbook, everything says that's a soliloquy. There's 2 good indications to indicate it's not. 1, Ophelia's on the stage. 2, just before that scene, the king and Polonius talk about setting Hamlet up, setting Ophelia to be a spy, or be bait, okay? And that they will stand in a place where they can overhear the conversation. And when they come back out, after Hamlet leaves, they discuss what Hamlet said. It's not a soliloquy. In a true soliloquy, nobody else within the play hears those words, because a soliloquy is nothing but the verbalizing of a character's inner thoughts.
So the Sound and Fury, like monologue from by Macbeth,
Macbeth?
that would definitely be a soliloquy. 'Cause only he's privy to.
there's only one person on stage, then it's a soliloquy. I mean, that's the definition. When a character speaks and is the only person on stage, there's a difference between a soliloquy and an aside, right? Because you have lots of asides where other people are on the stage. But in an aside, the character usually should look directly to the audience. Nobody on the stage hears that either. But an aside is usually only one or two sentences. I mean, to be or not to be, that's like 40 or 50 lines. It's one of the major, it's often called the greatest soliloquy in the English language. But it's not, okay? So, back to measure for measure. I mean, you could do that kind of thing. You could find 5 articles about to be or not to be and easily play those off each other, okay? Again, I'll give all the details in the handout. But what I'm going to look for is a page and a half to 2 pages, okay? Essentially for each article, even though, you know, if you do it the way I'm kind of suggesting, it's not, you know, a page and a half for one article, page and a half for another, but overall, it should be 7 to 10 pages. That's going to be about a page and a half to 2 pages for each article. But you weave the conversation in and out. Bibliography, works cited page at the end, to leave all the full bibliographical data, all that kind of stuff. A title, and the title can be as simply as a review essay, a review of 5 Hamlet articles, something like that, okay? Like I said, I'll send it out with a little bit more specific requirements later on today. I want to make sure you have it so that if you want to not totally blow off during spring break, you can have at least something to start thinking about, okay? Questions? I know you had your hand up.
I don't know if I'm saying this right, but is it kind of like a synthesis essay or a?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because one of the things you want to do is you want to comment on what these authors are saying, but you know, you can do that in such a way where you kind of disagree, but someone else says, okay, which is what you ought to do, even in scholarly writing anyways. The idea that scholarly writing has to be, quote unquote, totally objective, it's ludicrous.
It's boring.
Well, it's not.
It's impossible.
It's impossible. Why? Because you chose this material to write about. That indicates you're not objective. Okay? Here's an example of what I'm getting at. Back in 1987, I think it was 1987, Shakespeare scholar named Richard Levin wrote an article on, I think it might have just been titled something like Feminist Criticism of Shakespeare. Okay? Levin was a professor at Yale, I believe. It wasn't, you know, a major groundbreaking kind of an essay or article, but what he did was he took feminist criticism as just one kind of thematic approach. Okay? There are all kinds of other thematic approaches. Marxist criticism, psychoanalytical criticism, new historicist criticism. Anyway, in other words, any one of those schools, or another way of looking at it, any one of those lenses of criticism. Okay? You put on one set of lenses, what does that do?
It changes how you read it.
Changes how you read it. It means you don't put on a bunch of other lenses. It filters out all this other stuff. And the central point of his thesis was, when you take a thematic critical perspective, you are automatically limiting what you see. And by filtering out other stuff, you're doing what? You are forcing that particular interpretation. Okay? Because it removes the parts of the plays that go counter to it. Because you don't see that. Once you're only looking for one particular thing. In other words, if you start looking for something, what's going to happen? you will find it, because you'll find it to the exclusion of everything else. When I'm teaching a graduate course, when I used to teach graduate courses, what I would tell the students is, I want you to take all of those lenses, put them aside as much as you can. Notice there's a hedge. And look at whatever it is you're reading and analyzing, etc., solely from your lenses. Okay, there's a difference there. Now, you might have been brought up, you might have been raised, your educational training might have developed within you a somewhat narrow set of lenses, but as I said at the beginning of this class, try as much as possible to take those off. In other words, look at whatever you read from your own perspective. Not what your teachers have told you, not what you've read, but the way you generally look at the world and such. Okay? And then, and this is partially again from C.S. Lewis, his little book, last book published posthumously, I think it was published posthumously, called An Experiment in Criticism. Okay? It's a great little book. Let whatever it is you're reading work on you. In other words, give it the power, give it the authority, rather than you trying to force it into whatever this box is. Let it be like rainwater. Take it in and then go, okay, so what is, and one of the things I try to do in classes is I look at a lot of individual words, right, and try to see connections. For example, since we're on Henry IV and this other thing is out of your mind now, think Midsummer Night's Dream. There's a couple of words that seem to appear over and over and over again. Dream is one. Fantasy, fancy, imagination is another. And what's the third one?
Sight.
It's first, say it again?
Sight.
Sight. It's not the one I was thinking of, but the one I was thinking of, sight is, when we first get introduced to Helena, it's not Helena speaking, it's somebody else talking about Helena. It's Lysander talking about Helena because he mentions Demetrius won her heart. And she, in the span of a single sentence, uses the word doting. And then we're going to hear dote, dotage, and doting several other times throughout the play. Why? What does it mean to dote? Okay? That's an important issue in the play because the word itself implies not thinking, not being rational. When you dote on something, you look at it to the exclusion of everything else. You don't pay attention. That's not rational. Okay? Well, one of the ideas in the play is irrationality versus rationality. Passions located in the gut compared to the mind. All right? So I try to, open, which is what criticism ought to do. Criticism ought to be like a flashlight. It ought to shine light where there is confusion. I was noticing today, here's an example. I was noticing today, I was rereading from class, and there's a line that is glossed, which I thought was odd. Let's see if I can find it. It's on the left-hand column. And the word is something, it's about trial. It's not where Hal offers to fight Hotspur in single trial. And the word is trial, but it comes before another word, and again, I should have noted it. And the word that gets glossed is not the word trial. It's the word next to it. And the gloss seems rather silly because it almost seems like the wrong word is being glossed. The word that's being glossed makes sense in its context. The word trial, and I wish I could find it, does not.
Sorry.
I'll find it when we get to it, and then I'll play it out. Okay? Okay, so let's go on. You had a question, and then Zane.
Yeah, how has it been called a soliloquy? If
I don't know.
if Ophelia's still on the stage, like
I don't
who came
know.
up with that idea?
I have no idea. I mean, every edition of Shakespeare, every modern edition, let me put it that way, stage directions does not have Ophelia leave the stage. Now, usually the way it's performed, Hamlet comes out here through this stage door, excuse me, this tiring house door, and Ophelia is usually on the far corner. But she's still on the stage, which is why if I were directing it, I would have Hamlet come out because we've been told he's been sent for. Okay? I would have Hamlet come out and glance up. He knows she's there. And that's what Derek Jacobi mentions, that Hamlet knows she's there, and therefore the whole speech before, the fair Ophelia. Everything before that is intended for the fair Ophelia's ears. And then Jacobi mentions, I'll send you guys the link to this because it's just fascinating. Jacobi mentions something, it never crossed my mind before. That it could be Hamlet's speech, where what is he talking about in To Be or Not to Be? Suicide. He posits the question, does Hamlet put the idea in Ophelia's mind? Does she commit suicide? There's a great topic right there. It's kind of, it's like American politics. It's somewhat evenly split. Some say, yes, she does commit suicide. The text says she fell. The clowns think, gravediggers, think she committed suicide. It's not clear. You could say the preponderance of the evidence in a civil trial would say, I'm going to fine you for XYZ. But in a criminal trial, it's got to be more than preponderance of evidence. It's got to be beyond shadow of a doubt, essentially. Question?
Two things about the soliloquy, or to be or not to be. I think maybe the reason it's considered a soliloquy is just because whoever's performing the role of Hamlet, usually it's a really good actor, and often they're often you literally the center of the stage, and often doing a really excellent performance. So I think the audience often forgets that Ophelia is there. Also, you can still accepting news.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Sorry.
And another thing about that. Okay, so, and I know we got to get to Henry IV. We'll finish it. Part one. Where are Claudius and Polonius in that scene?
Sort of hiding.
Theoretically speaking, within the world, the fiction of the play, if they aren't somewhere within the confines of the stage, they can't hear what's being said. What do they say they will do? If I remember correctly, they're going to hide behind an arras, or they're going to stand in some place where they can overhear. I've never seen a production where they hide behind one of the curtains that covers the tiring house. Should they? Should Hamlet be able to go, shoes, and notice that they're spying on him? But because it's interesting, if you know that scene, after he engages Ophelia, I almost said Hermia, after he engages Ophelia, in the middle of talking with her, what question does he ask her? Anybody know? Where's your father? Anybody know her response? At home. She's just lied to him. It's the first time in the play. Yeah, kind of. You can debate that. It's the first time where she out and out, completely, totally lies to him. Okay? Which reinforces, possibly, Hamlet's, all of his thinking. In other words, if even the love of my life has turned on me, the hell with them all, they're going to burn, you know, kind of a mentality. Okay, so let's pick up with Act 4. The very end of Scene 3. Okay, we talked about it a little bit the other day. So, Hotspur is talking with Blunt. What did Blunt come for? Anybody remember?
Oh, to discuss, surrender.
Yeah, it's like an offer.
Yeah.
Is it surrender?
No, it's like a,
They're like saying, if you'll just tell us what's wrong, we'll fix it and we'll pardon you for what you've done.
Bingo. It's a peace. It's a peace offer. It's tell us what your complaints are, and the king will meet those and go beyond them. Okay? Hotspur, page 18 in my book, beginning around 92 or so, when Blunt says, I came not to hear this, and the this is referring to Hotspur recounting how the king came to be king. Because of people like Hotspur and his father Northumberland, and Worcester, and Mortimer, and the Archbishop of York, etc., etc. Don't recount to me history. So Hotspur says, okay, to the point then. After he deposed the king, soon after that, deprived him of his life, and in the neck of that tasked the whole state. To make that worse, suffered his kinsman March, who is, if every power were well placed, indeed is king. That is, March is the one that Richard II said should be king after him, because Richard did not have a son. So it should fall to the next eldest in line after Richard. Right? So he's saying the king, Henry II, did what? He sent March to be engaged in Wales, there without ransom to lie forfeited. Disgraced me, so now Hotspur's talking about himself, in my happy victories, sought to entrap me by intelligence, raided mine uncle from the council board. Remember when Henry kicked Worcester out of the council? In rage dismissed my father, Lord Northumberland, from the court, broke oath on oath, committed wrong on wrong, and in conclusion drove us to seek out this head of safety. This head of safety, he's talking about this armed band. It's for their safety. And withal to pry into his title, the which we find too indirect for long continuance. So, Blunt, that's what you want me to say to the king? What has Hotspur just done? He's declared his independence. And I use those terms intentionally. This is the rebels' Declaration of Independence. What does Thomas Jefferson do throughout the Declaration? He lists the reasons for a divorce from England. You want me to tell this to the king? Hotspur, nope. We'll withdraw. That is, I'll talk about it with the others. Go to the king. Let there be in pawn some surety for a safe return again, and in the morning early shall my uncle bring him our purposes. Okay? So, Blunt, I would you would accept of grace and love. What's the difference between grace and love? He's saying the king is being gracious to you, and the king wishes you to return to his love. Now, we can debate, is it an honest offer? If you read the play the way my dissertation director read the play in the 70s, you would say, hell no. Why? There was a nickname for Richard Nixon, Tricky Dick. Can't trust him, okay? And everybody, well, university professors, read Henry II, the character, as a medieval version of Nixon. So, 4-4. Archbishop of York comes in, and some guy named Sir Michael, who I don't remember who that is, and we're told, tomorrow is the day wherein the fortune of 10,000 men must bide the touch. The morrow is going to be the Battle of Shrewsbury. It's a real battle, actually occurred, okay? As I am truly given to understand, the king with mighty and quick raised power meets with Lord Harry, that is Hotspur. He's saying, tomorrow, the forces of the king will meet against the forces of Hotspur. And I fear, Sir Michael, what with the sickness of Northumberland, that is because Northumberland is lying in bed sick, and what else? Because Lord Northumberland hasn't marched, his men haven't marched. All right? Whose power was in the first proportion, in other words, he had the largest number of troops. And what with Owen Glendower's absence thence, who with them was a rated sinew too, that is, strong man, and comes not in overruled by prophecies, like Glendower has had a vision, don't go. I fear the power of Percy is too weak to wage an instant trial with the king. He's not talking about that's the line, he's not talking about a single combat, instant trial, line 20. Instant, immediate. Really? Does that really need to be glossed? I think more the trial is more important than that, because we have one meaning today, essentially, for trial. What is it? Some kind of courtroom proceeding. That's not what's meant. The trial is the proving of oneself. Percy and his men will prove themselves against the king and his men. Okay? So, Sir Michael, you don't need to worry. Why? You've got the Douglas and Lord Mortimer. Nope, Mortimer's not here. So Glendower with his forces, Mortimer with his forces, they're still in Wales. So who's it gonna be against the king? Hotspur and Douglas and their forces. That's it. But there's Mordake, Vernon, Lord Harry Percy, and there's my Lord of Worcester, head of gallant warriors, noble gentlemen, Archbishop of York. Yeah, you're right. So there is. Okay, so you've got those on one side, and then he goes on. But the king also hath drawn the special head of all the land together. What's the special head? He means the cream of the crop. The Prince of Wales. What do we know about the Prince of Wales so far? He's good at drinking, he's good at gaming, he's good at whoring, he's good at robbing, he's good at practical jokes. Okay? The Archbishop seems to know something. I'm not saying he does know something. You know, that subjunctive verb seems, condition contrary to fact. He seems to know something. It's like he thinks there's more to Harry than, or Hal, maybe than what appears. There's the Prince of Wales, the Lord John of Lancaster, who's like 15 years old. The noble Westmoreland and warlike Blunt, and many more co-rivals and dear men. Sir Michael, they shall be well opposed. Archbishop, I hope no less. 'Tis needful to fear. What does he mean, needful? Is there a gloss? No.
Responsible.
It's responsible, exactly. It's appropriate to fear. You guys don't remember? In 1991, summer of 1990, leading to January, February of 91, I think it was, the first Gulf War kicking Iraq out of Kuwait and stuff. Why did the U.S. move essentially about 500,000 troops, U.S. and coalition forces at that point, to Iraq? Because there was this fear that the Iraqi Republican Guard was this fearsome, mighty army. That they would fight like the Japanese soldiers in World War II to the last man. It was appropriate to fear that. Why? Iraq and Iran had fought an 8-year war to a stalemate. I mean, we think the stuff going on in Ukraine right now, between Ukraine and Russia, is bad in terms of the numbers of dead. Nothing compared to what went on in Iraq and Iran. And yet we went in and totally defeated them within 4 days, all right? They don't know that's what's gonna happen. So he's saying, yeah, but we should really be prepared. We shouldn't discount them, okay? Therefore, to prevent the worst, speed, that is, we need to hasten. For if Lord Percy thrive not before the king dismiss his power, he means to visit us. What does that mean, dismiss his power? Send his troops home. England in the Middle Ages did not have a standing army. The idea of a standing army is relatively recent in history, in world history, okay? He had to raise up his armies to fight particular battles and such. So, 5-1. King comes in. How bloodily the sun begins to peer above yon bosky hill. The sun is rising, and what's the color of the sky? Blood red. It's an omen. Many will die this day. The day looks pale at his distemperature. The prince. The southern wind doth play the trumpet to his purposes. In other words, there's a wind blowing. Ill wind, favorable wind. And by his hollow whistling in the leaves foretells a tempest and a blustering day. Again, the natural world is indicating that the human world is getting ready for a great battle. Worcester and Vernon come in. Okay? Bear in mind, they're enemies. They're rebels. King, how now, my lord of Worcester? 'Tis not well that you and I should meet upon such terms as now we meet. You have deceived our trust and made us doff our easy robes of peace to crush our old limbs in ungentle steel. What's he saying? I shouldn't be armed to the teeth. I'm an old man. I should be walking around in a robe and slippers. He doesn't mean robe. He's talking about the robes of state. Okay? This is not well, my lord. This is not well. Right? Truer statement never made. This isn't good. Civil war is never good. What say you to it? Will you again unknit, I love this line, unknit this churlish knot of all abhorred war? Will you untie this impending battle? What's he indicating? It's in Worcester's power to do that. And move in that obedient orb again, where you did give a fair and natural light. Think of that image. Move in that orbit, a circle, okay, where you did give a fair and natural light. What imagery is he using? Sun, moon. What's the sun? There's actually a king, not English, who called himself the Sun King, Louis XIV of France.
Really?
Yep.
Is that what the Beatles are referencing?
Yes.
Did
The
not
king.
know that.
The king is what? The light. Okay? And so when he says, where you did give a fair and natural light, means reflected my glory. Why? Old Testament idea. May the Lord make his face to, what's the next word? Shine upon you. The king is suggesting, return to me and I will shine upon you again. Or, and be no more an exhaled meteor. Because what happens to meteors? They flash brightly for a moment, and then they expire. He's warning him. You want to live in my light or die in the darkness. A prodigy of fear and a portent of broached mischief to the unborn times. Do you want to be a prodigy of fear? Now, what's a prodigy? Okay, keep going. I mean, yes.
A born natural who can do great things with little effort or practice.
Mozart, absolutely disgusting. I think Mozart wrote his first concerto when he was like 4. 4. I was hearing something on Classic FM, it's a British radio station you can listen to via the internet. Gabriel Fauré or some other modern composer had written several concertos by the time he was 10. And these are concertos we still listen to. I mean, these aren't, ding, 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 ding. These are full-blown. So a prodigy of fear, showing unnatural greatness of fear, and a portent. See, portent always has what connotation to it? Is it auspicious? It's always negative. Like omen. You don't get an omen of a raise or winning the lottery. Those are auspicious. You get an omen of a cancer diagnosis or, something horrible like that. Worcester, hear me, my liege. For mine own part, I could be well content to entertain the lag end of my life with quiet hours. In other words, I get you, Henry. I'm old. I'm tired. I'd like to die in peace. For I protest I have not sought the day of this dislike. We've not sought this. You have not sought it? How does it come? Falstaff. Rebellion lay in his way, and he found it. You gotta love Falstaff. Every now and then he says something, kernel of truth, pearl of great price, so to speak, in wisdom. Not usually, but every now and then, broken clock is right twice a day. Rebellion lay in his way, and he found it. Prince, peace, chew it. Peace, shut the hell up. Is this someplace where Falstaff should be? No. Worcester, long speech. It pleased your majesty to turn your looks of favor from myself and all our house. Notice, you chose this. And yet I must remember you, that is, remind you, my lord, what? And he goes through and he does the exact same thing Hotspur said to Blunt. If it weren't for me and my house and my compatriots, you wouldn't be king. For you, my staff of office, did I break in Richard's time and post a day and night to meet you on the way. That is, I rode for a day and a night to meet you and kissed your hand when yet you were in place and in account nothing so strong and fortunate as I. It was myself, my brother, and his son, my brother, Northumberland, his son, Harry Hotspur, that brought you home and boldly did outdare the dangers of the time. Why? Because when they agreed to help Bolingbroke return to England, they automatically set themselves at odds with the king. Just by doing that, they became traitors. You swore to us, and you did swear that oath at Doncaster, that you did nothing purpose against the state. That is, that you had no plans for the kingship, nor claim no further than your new fallen right, the seat of Gaunt, dukedom of Lancaster, which was, by the way, in the Middle Ages, one of the greatest dukedoms in medieval England in terms of its largesse, its the amount of its land. As I mentioned before, when Bolingbroke was banished, after he had been banished for a while, Richard claimed all of his lands. Okay? All of his property, all of his wealth. That wasn't part of the original decision to banish him. The reason Bolingbroke in Richard II comes back is to reclaim all that. Okay? That you did nothing purpose against the seat of Gaunt, dukedom of Lancaster. To this we swore, that is, we swore to help you do that. Why? Why did the barons force Prince John, King John, to sign Magna Carta in 1215? Anybody know? To protect themselves. They banded together and created, I'm going to use a modern and a very anachronistic term, a union of dukes against the CEO, King John. What did Magna Carta say? I mean, it's a very large basis for our system of government. It said you have a right to a trial by a jury of your peers. See that word peer? That's a very literal meaning. According to Magna Carta, you're not my peers. For a couple reasons. One, you're all 30 or 40 years younger than I am. Okay? Two, possibly social standing, though I would hazard a guess that several of you are higher social standing because I don't give a rat's ass for any of that. All that kind of stuff. Peers refers to peerage. So a duke gets tried by other dukes. An earl gets tried by other earls. A peasant gets tried not by dukes and earls, theoretically. Okay? But in short pace it rained down fortune showering on your head, and such a flood of greatness, notice, fell on you. You're not great. The greatness came from where? Outside. What with our help with the absent king, where was the king? He was off fighting a war in Ireland. What with the injuries of a want time, the seeming sufferances, blah, 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 blah. You took occasion, line 56, to be quickly wooed to grip the general sway into your hand. What's the general sway? What's a word real big today in political circles? It describes, so to speak, what Trump has done with the Republican Party. I don't mean MAGA. It's a movement. Populism. What's populism? Vox populi, the voice of the people. Vox populi, vox Dei, the voice of the people. It's a Latin phrase. The voice of the people is the voice of God. Okay? That's not traditional republicanism. Either big R or little r. Okay? He says, you got the populace to join your side. What did we see King Henry tell Hal in his little interview? You are too much in the people's eyes. If I had been like you, I wouldn't be king now. And here's what I did. And he tells us the backstory to exactly what Worcester is talking about, how he became king. Okay? So, he says, you forgot your oath, 58, at Doncaster, and being fed by us, you used us so as that ungentle gull, the cuckoo's bird, useth the sparrow. And he's playing on this medieval idea that the cuckoo robs the sparrow's nest. You did oppress our nest, grew by our feeding to so great a bulk that even our love durst not come near your sight for fear of swallowing, being swallowed by you. Okay? King, these things indeed you have articulate. Well done. You labeled your problems. Proclaimed at market crosses in the center of town, that is, you guys have declaimed these things publicly. You've read in churches to do what? To face the garment of rebellion with some fine color. What does it mean to face the garment of rebellion? To line it. To make it appear what? Louder? Appealing, not as rebellion. To make it look appropriate. That may please the eye of fickle changelings and poor discontents. Who are the poor discontents?
Peasants.
Peasants? What's the discontents? We would call them something else today. We would probably call them malcontents. People who are never happy. Who always, the anarchists who want to tear down the government. Which gape and rub the elbow at the news of hurly-burly innovation. The people who are always looking for something new, the salaried activists, so to speak. The people, literally, the people who get paid to show up at protests. And all they do, professionally, is protest. Doesn't matter the cause, if it's something against the power, the man, the establishment, whatever. Okay? So then the prince speaks. In both your armies there is many a soul shall pay full dearly for this encounter, if once they join in trial. What does he mean? A lot of men are gonna die. Worcester, tell your nephew, the Prince of Wales doth join with all the world in praise of Henry Percy. Yea, Hotspur. By my hopes, this present enterprise set off his head. I do not think a braver gentleman, more active, valiant, or more valiant young, more daring or more bold, is now alive to grace this latter age with noble deeds. What has Hal just said about Hotspur? He's peerless. He's the greatest. I acknowledge it. Everybody acknowledges it. In this day, this latter age, no one compares to Hotspur for valiance, or courage, or bravery. For my part, so he's praised Hotspur, he's listed the foil's qualities, and now he's going to list his own. You don't usually see this. I may speak to my shame, I have a truant been to chivalry. What does that mean, a truant? Not present. Or lately arrived. You can be truant by not showing up, and you can be truant by arriving very late. And so I hear he doth account me too. See, it's one thing for Hal to talk about his lack of chivalry, but when somebody else does, then them's become fighting words. And so I hear he doth account me too, yet this before my father's majesty, this, what's going to come. I am content that he shall take the odds of his great name and estimation, and will, to save the blood on either side, try fortune with him in a single fight. What has Hal just done? Two, single combat. What does that mean? We two will meet in a prescribed area for a battle to the death. That's what it means. And whoever wins, that side wins. Why would you do this?
To avoid everybody dying.
Exactly. To avoid loss of life. Okay? How do you characterize this challenge on Hal's part? What adverb or adjective would you use to describe this? Louder?
Noble.
Noble? Yes, but it's more than that.
It's a little outlandish.
Outlandish? See, noble's a nice neutral term, kind of. Outlandish, that's a little more, it's colored.
He hasn't like totally proven himself that he.
He hasn't proven himself at all. Okay.
It's honorable, it's merciful on his part.
Honorable, merciful, it's magnanimous. What's the difference between nobility and magnanimity? Magnanimity, or a, I can't use that as an adjective on a word. A magnanimous act is what? It goes beyond nobility. It's selfless. It is totally about the other. Okay? But again, and notice, he does this before his father the king, meaning he can't back down once he makes a statement. The king, and Prince of Wales, so dare we venture thee, albeit considerations infinite, do make against it. We will venture you, even though infinite considerations. There's all kinds of problems with this. Say, I shouldn't. What is that telling us about the king? Is he putting everything in the pot and rolling the dice that Hal's going to win? In one sense, yes, but what else is he showing in Hal? Faith. Trust. He thinks his son can do this. No, good Worcester, no, we love our people well. Even those we love that are misled upon your cousin's part. That is, I even love you damn traitors, you rebels. And will they take the offer of our grace, both he and they and you, yea, every man shall be my friend again, and I'll be his. So tell your cousin, bring me word what he will do. If he will not yield, rebuke and dread correction wait on us, and they shall do their office. Now you've got a gloss for wait, line 111. Are awaiting my royal command. Yeah, but what does wait really mean? Dread, rebuke, and dread correction attend with me. If I go into this battle, it's like the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse are going to ride with me. And they shall do their office. What's meant by office? See, here's where I would say you need a gloss for a modern reader. Office means duty. We think office is like, The Office, the TV show, or a room where you do business. It is a duty. It is a responsibility. It is an obligation. So be gone. We will not now be troubled with reply. We offer fair. Take it advisedly. So what has he offered? Surface level, let's talk about that first. On the surface, what is the king's offer? Tell us your problems, your grievances, much like Blunt said to Hotspur. What else?
If you concede, we'll be friends again. I'll just forget this happened and move on.
Perfect. Disband your troops, and it'll be like the rough vexation of a dream. Okay? It'll be like nothing's ever happened. We will be friends again. Surface level. Okay? How many of you think he's sincere?
He's not.
Why?
Well, in his own speech earlier talking to Prince Hal, he discusses how he put on an act of humility to try and win popular opinion to get the throne in the first place, which means that he's already a deceiver. And so, and we also have him compared to Harry, who does the exact opposite of his father to try and highlight his good qualities by coming out of something that's dark, rather than to have his poor qualities revealed after pretending to be something he isn't. And so father and son become foils, and just all of that makes it seem like the king is just, his true nature has been revealed, and the rebels are right in this regard.
Okay. That's probably the consensus perspective. That the king is entirely duplicitous. Who's the medieval writer I brought up several times already? Who writes about politics? Machiavelli.
Oh, yeah.
In Machiavelli's The Prince, which is a handbook for how to rule, that is a common kind of book in the late Middle Ages up through the Renaissance. You have Baldassare Castiglione writes a book called The Book of the Courtier. Okay, you have The Mirror for Magistrates. These are all books designed how to make one a wise, effective ruler. Okay, in Machiavelli's The Prince, I don't know if you've read it or not. You should, because it's very important politically. He essentially posits two questions, or one question. On the part of the ruler, is it better to be feared or loved?
He says it's feared.
He suggests feared. Why? Because if your people fear you, then that does what? It keeps them in control. If they love you, then what do they think they will be able to do? They'll be able to manipulate you. But to be a good leader, hate to say it, you've got to be good at propaganda. Is propaganda telling the truth? Not necessarily. Does propaganda have to be lying? No. It depends on what truth you tell, or what amount of truth you tell. Okay? So, the king says, prince says, after Worcester leave, they're not going to accept. They're not going to accept my offer, and they're not going to accept your offer. So the king says, all right, then everybody take your positions. And then we get a little tiny scene with Hal and Falstaff. Hal leaves, and just before he does, Hal says, no, I can't go back. Falstaff says, Hal, if thou see me down in the field and bestride me, so 'tis a point of friendship. And bestride me, step over me, okay? Hal, nothing but a colossus can do thee that friendship. Why? Because he's so fat. You'd have to be the Colossus of Rhodes in order to step over you, okay? Falstaff, I would for bedtime, Hal, and all well. In other words, I want to just lie down and go to sleep. Hal, why? Thou's got a death. Bedtime, nighttime, sleeping, John Donne says in one of his holy sonnets, is an image of death. And whereas we wake up refreshed from sleep, how much more refreshed will we be, Donne suggests, when we wake from death, eternally, resurrection. Hell, you owe God a death. Why? Everybody dies. Okay? Falstaff. Hal leaves. 'Tis not due yet. Not my time yet. But as George Carlin used to say, if you're on a plane, it's not your time to die. Really sucks if it's the pilot's time. So, what need I be forward with him, man, that calls not on me? Why should I go knock on God's door when God's not calling me? What's he mean? Tomorrow is certain death if I march into battle. Maybe I'll hang back a little bit. Let the battle come to me. So he says, 'tis no matter, honor pricks me on. And Falstaff goes off on that idea of honor. But how if honor prick me off when I come on? Kills me. How then? Can honor set to a leg? No. Or an arm. That is, can honor set a broken leg? No. Broken arm? No. Or take away the grief of a wound? No. Honor hath no skill in surgery then? No. What is honor? A word. What is in that word? Honor. What is that honor? That is, what are all the meanings behind that word? Air. Why? What is that word literally? Every word you speak is literally what? Air. It's air flowing out of the body in order to make that word. It's very hard to speak when you're sucking in. Okay? Literally, it's very hard. It's not how the vocal cords work. A trim reckoning. Who hath it? Who has honor? He that died a Wednesday. Does he feel it? No. Doth he hear it? No. 'Tis insensible then. Honor is insensible. Yea, to the dead. But will it not live with the living? No. Why? Detraction will not suffer it. You've got a gloss. Allowed, detraction, slander. Slander will not allow it. Therefore I'll none of it. What? I'll none of honor. I'll have none of honor. Honor is a mere escutcheon. What's an escutcheon? That is an escutcheon. It's an emblem. It's just a sign. Pointing to, in Hallstaff's rendering, nothing. What does honor get you? If you're lucky, 6 feet in the ground. Okay?
There's nothing in it for you.
Nope. So, 5-2, and I know we've got to go quickly. Worcester comes in. So my nephew must not know, Sir Richard, the liberal and kind offer of the king. Sarah, I'm going to ask you, what does that say about the king's offer? Because you took a position. Nobody else did, but you took a position. Your position was, the king's offer was not honest. It wasn't a fair broker. What is Worcester suggesting here?
That it might be.
That it might be. And because it might be, we can't do what? We can't tell Hotspur. Why? Vernon, 'twere best he did. Then are we all undone. If Hotspur hears the liberal and kind offer of the king, then we will be undone. He's saying Hotspur will accept it. Why? What is Hotspur the theme of? Honor's tongue. An honorable man thinks what about other men of nobility?
Things well with them.
That they are also honorable. It cannot be the king should keep his word in loving us. So he said, it's a liberal and kind offer. And now he goes, it just can't be. He will suspect us still and find a time to punish this offense and other faults. He'll find a time later to take us all out. Notice, in other faults. What has Worcester just told us? They do have other faults. There will be more issues. Suspicion all our lives shall be stuck full of eyes, for treason is but trusted like the fox, who never so tame, so cherished and locked up will have a wild trick of its ancestors. What word has he just used to describe himself? Treason. So should the king trust them? with this offer. Said, now, my nephew's trespass may be well forgot. Why? It hath the excuse of youth and heat of blood, and an adopted name of privilege, a harebrained Hotspur, flying off at the handle, kind of a thing. All his offenses live upon my head and on his father's. He's saying, but we're older, we're wiser, we should have known better. We did train him on, and his corruption being taken from us, we as the spring of all shall pay for all. No, he says, no, don't let Harry know. Notice Worcester's telling us, I think, something pretty important here. Hotspur is honorable, and he will act honorably. But the king will say, I forgive you, Hotspur. Why? The implication is Hotspur's kind of, okay? It's not quite accurate, but it works. Following orders. Who's the one issuing the orders? Worcester in Lord Northumberland. So, Vernon and the others come in. Hotspur says, my uncle's returned. What's the news? The king will battle you presently. Okay? They talk back and forth. And Hotspur says, Worcester tells him, 45, the Prince of Wales stepped forth before the king and challenged you to single fight. Hotspur, ho ho! Would that the quarrel lay upon our heads, and that no man might draw short breath today, but I and Harry Monmouth. Oh, that'd be great. Notice, he thinks the same thing. It's stupid for all these other men to die. But then he asks, how did he suggest this? Was he in contempt? Seeing him in contempt, he goes, by God, no. I never in my life did hear a challenge urged more modestly, unless a brother should a brother dare to gentle exercise and proof of arms. He gave you all the duties of a man, trimmed up your praises with a princely tongue, spoke your deservings like a chronicle, making you ever better than its praise by still dispraising praise valued with you, and which became him like a prince indeed. In other words, he really is a prince. He made a blushing sidle of himself, and chid his truant youth with such a grace as if he mastered there a double spirit of teaching and of learning instantly. What's Vernon getting at? I think he's kind of suggesting, be careful if you come within the orbit of S-O-N, the sun. Hal. There did he pause. But let me tell the world, if he outlived the envy of this day, England did never owe so sweet a hope, so much misconstrued in his wantonness. What's the so sweet a hope? Hal, in his opening soliloquy, talks about the hope and expectation. Vernon is saying, if Hal survives today, England has great hope in him. That's why Hotspur says, I think you are enamored of his follies. This is a bromance. You've fallen in love with Prince Hal. He says, but okay, I hope I get to meet him. All right? So, 5-3. King enters with his power. There's an alarum, that is, let cry that dogs will war and such, and there's battle. Blunt fights with Douglas, etc. We see a bunch of fighting going on. Douglas kills Blunt. Hotspur comes in, sees Douglas. Okay, Falstaff comes in after Hotspur leaves. Talks about how he has led his men into battle. 35, I have led my ragamuffins where they are peppered. Like he led them into the heat. There's not 3 of my 150 left alive. And they are for the town's end to beg during life. Hal comes in And Hal says, lend me thy sword, because Hal has lost his in the heat of battle. What does Falstaff hand him? Nothing. But Hal reaches into Falstaff's holster. They had pistols at this time, big long ones. And he pulls out a bottle of sack, bottle of cheap wine. Is it time to jest? And he throws the bottle at him. Hal leaves. Falstaff, if Percy be alive, I'll pierce him. If he do come in my way, so if he do it. Percy here, Hotspur. Why? Because Lord Northumberland is still back in Northumbria. King comes in. He tells Hal to withdraw. Thou bleedest too much. He's wounded. Lord John of Lancaster go with you. And Lancaster says, not me. I'm not bleeding unless I bleed too. The prince says, don't worry, your majesty. You retire. Why? Lest your retirement, I beseech your majesty, make up lest your retirement do amaze your friends. Sorry, just the opposite. Don't retire. What happens if they see the king leave the battlefield? His troops will think the king is fleeing. Okay? So, Westmoreland offers to lead Hal to his tent. He says no, etc. Douglas comes in to fight the king. King being in danger, Hal comes in, he fights, he defeats the Douglas and such. In line 59 or so, Hotspur comes in. So we now have just Hal and Hotspur on the stage. If I mistakes not, thou art Harry Monmouth. You're the Prince of Wales. Thou speaks as if I would deny my name. My name is Harry Percy. How? Why then I see a very valiant rebel of the name. So they know who each other is. Hal says, I'm the Prince of Wales. Think not, Percy, to share with me in glory any more. Two stars keep not their motion in one sphere. Talking about this idea, you know, when I talked early on about the spheres, the Ptolemaic system of the universe and such, well, each of these spheres has a ruling intelligence, or star, or planet. The medieval scholastic theologians essentially said that's an angelic being for each of those spheres. Hal is saying you can't have two bodies in one sphere. One's going to knock the other one out. I'm going to do the knocking. Nor can one England brook a double reign of Harry Percy and the Prince of Wales. You can't have two Harrys, in other words. Hotspur, nor shall it, Harry, for the hour is come to end the one of us, and would to God thy name in arms were as great as mine. And don't you wish you were renowned as I am? How? I'll make it greater ere I part from thee. How? All the budding honors on thy crest I'll crop to make a garland for my head. Because if I, drunken, dissolute, carousing, etc., Hal, can defeat Harry Hotspur, then what does that show? I'm so much better. So they fight. Douglas comes in, okay? And Hal stabs, after Douglas ends, Hal stabs Hotspur, and we get 78 or so. Oh, Harry, thou hast robbed me of my youth. Why? Because he's not going to get any older. I better brook the loss of brittle life than those proud titles thou hast won of me. Notice what he's saying. I better brook. Brook there means enjoy. The loss of life than the loss of what? The honor you are taking from me. Why? Because Hal is going to be regarded as the better warrior. They wound my thoughts worse than thy sword, my flesh, my thoughts, the slaves of life and lifetime's fool, in time that takes survey of all the world must have a stop. And he says, I could prophesy, but that the earthly and cold hand of death lies on my tongue. No, Percy, thou art dust and food for what? Jump to Hamlet. Worms. Worms. For worms, brave Percy. And Hal goes on and does what? He praises Percy in his death. And says that he will be lifted up and given honorable burial. He covers Hotspur's face. He sees Falstaff and says, could not all this flesh keep in a little life? Poor Jack, farewell. I could have better spared a better man. Oh, I should have a heavy, pawning not his weight, miss of thee if I were much in love with vanity. Death hath not struck so fat a deer today, though many dearer to Hal than Falstaff in this bloody fray. Emboweled will I see thee by and by, that is, properly buried, till then in blood by noble Percy lie. Why? He's implying Falstaff will get some of Hal's glory, some of Hotspur's glory, just by lying beside him. He leaves. Falstaff gets up. And what does he do? He takes out his sword and he goes to Hotspur's body and stabs it. What is that an act of? Defiance. What else? Disrespect. That's desecrating a body. Okay? Because what does he say? Hotspur might be what? Doing exactly what Falstaff did, pretending to be dead. That tells us what about Falstaff? He does not understand honor. Again, just like Worcester thinks the worst of people, and Hotspur would think the best of people, Falstaff, because of his faulty perspective, he thinks the worst. Okay? Hal comes in, he sees Falstaff, and Falstaff says, no, he got up after you left. I killed him. What does Hal do? Whatever. You get the credit. Why? Yeah, damn. Why does he give Falstaff the credit?
He's gonna give him just enough rope to hang himself.
Possibly. What's another reason? He doesn't care about the credit. Hal is not about what? Glory, fame, honor in that sense. For Hal, honor is what? It's actions. It's not reputation and fame. Okay? So, king, with the minute left. Thus, scene 5:5. Thus ever did rebellion find rebuke. Ill-spirited Worcester. Did we send grace, pardon, and terms of love to all of you? And wouldst thou turn our offers contrary? Misuse the tenor of thy kinsman's trust? What kinsman? Hotspur. 3 knights upon our party slain today. A noble earl, many a creature else had been alive this hour, if like a Christian thou hadst truly borne betwixt our armies true intelligence. In other words, he found out Worcester did not tell the truth to Hotspur. Now, again, we can debate. Is the king merely role-playing, acting here, or is this honesty and sincerity on his part? Okay? The play ends with the king saying, now we have to divide our power. Why? Is the rebellion done? Nope. Because we could turn the page, a few pages, and pick up second part of Henry IV, and we just continue. Okay, we'll stop there. I'll send that thing out today. They're not going to be due over the break, but I am going to put up at least one quiz for Henry IV Part 1. I'm still going to put up one over the second part of As You Like It. It'll be easy. They won't be due until the week after spring break. I'll get these graded today. Midterms will be posted by 4:30 tomorrow when they're due. Okay? midterm grades, that is.
Is that all right if you use this statement?
Yeah,